there, guys. Gonna do another weekly check-in for all my work stuff. Got Claude Code wrapping up my week here for me. I've got a work log with all my projects on it. I started accumulating essentially a data set of everything I'm doing throughout a week, and I use Claude Code to just use Python scripts and a Excel sheet to kind of collect this data. You can do a lot with just those two things, Python and Excel. But I think I have 450 lines on this now for just various tasks that I do throughout the week. And if they're tied to projects, I tie them to the projects. If I just get them through our ticketing system, I flag it that way too. Also have Python scripts that are hooked up to the ticketing system. So literally on Monday morning, what I'll do is I'll tell my Claude Code to run the Monday morning orchestrator, and it will read my work log, it'll pull any tickets that I have open or pending, and it will just generally tell me anything that I have open or pending on my work log. And I can start my week just by chatting with Claude Code and then getting it to write me prompts that get launched on those various tasks. So, fun times. One of the things that I actually did this week, beyond logging what I did, was a client portal. We pay a lot of money for our client portal that is not even really used a whole lot, but we have to have it just as a function of the business. And we pay a consulting group a lot of money to uphold it, maintain it, and just if we need to make changes, there's generally a feedback loop where we ask for what we want and they give us a statement of work. That all takes time, and then we have to look at the number of hours they quoted us and decide if that's worth it. And that can be tough decisions to make when you're just trying to modify little things that are annoying, either for the end users or the internal users of the client portal. So what we've decided to do as a team internally is make our own. You can build software now with Claude, and so we have just decided to take control of the situation and build our own version that doesn't require a statement of work to update. And so as we've been building it out, we've been adding features that weren't in the old one, and it's going to be a while before we can fully shift over to it. This week we worked on the authentication system and the ability to assign users to a row level security, essentially, for when they log into the app. They only see what we allow them to see based on some of the dimensions that are part of the data model underneath. And so it's been a lot of fun to do that. It's a really good use case for AI, something that an internal team really wouldn't have had the time to tackle before, which is the whole premise of why you pay consultants in the first place. But consultants are expensive, and it's kind of locked behind that paywall. Anything you want to change, you have to pay them to change it. So this is a way to kind of take back control. And so that's been pretty fruitful. The goal is to get that leaned on or supported for next year to actually give it more attention and make the real decision to transfer over to it. So we'll see if we get there. But it would be a large chunk of money that we would save the company if we would be able to, which is probably worth. What else? Did a lot with Fabric. So we're doing a Fabric migration. We use Power BI Premium workspaces for just about everything. And a lot of semantic models built on top of a lot of SQL code. And all of this has to be migrated over to Fabric. And so essentially have to do an entire data engineering stack where I map the tables that land from our ERP and CRM in our current data lake, which is just an Azure data lake, Gen 2 storage setup, and basically map all of the SQL and all of the semantic models, like all the dependencies from the Power BI model down to the SQL, down to the database. And there's also been a lot of accumulated, I will say, redundancy over time as we've built out some of these SQL views. So at the same time as I'm doing this I'm also having Claude clean up and consolidate things that should be consolidated on the SQL layer. And so Claude worked through all of that. We have a couple hundred views, a couple hundred semantic models. The goal at the end is actually to get that number down quite a bit, because you don't really need 150 reports for a company. Generally, you can get business analytics done with a lot less than that if you're just more intentioned. And so the solution isn't always to just build a report for everything. I generally like to build data marts, and so the first semantic models that I'll really try to rebuild in Fabric are our data marts, and then kind of see what all that can cover. The data will get there a lot faster with our new Fabric setup, because we're going to do mirroring from the ERP into Fabric for our bronze layer, and then bronze to silver will be Python notebooks. But I think we can optimize quite a bit versus how we have the current pipeline set up in Synapse. So yeah, made a lot of progress on that this week. What else? Data agents. So I've been tinkering with data agents quite a bit ever since I discovered that they're essentially the link for Microsoft into Copilot Studio agents. If you want those to be able to read your Power BI data, essentially, then you need to have semantic models that are tuned for an agent to read. And so I've been using Power BI projects and just the ability for Claude to do all of this now, to make agent versions of the data mart that can then be brought in to a Copilot Studio agent build out for different solutions. And so yeah, trying to build the base layer of that, agents that I think will be universally useful for certain segments of data, but you still need it to be somewhat narrow, because they fall apart a little bit if you try and give a data agent too many tables, too many metrics. They're better if they have a little bit of a fine-tuned focus. But if you want to link a Copilot Studio agent down into your Power BI data, that seems to be the way to do it. And so I put together a pricing one and an inventory one this week. And the nice thing about Claude is if you start at the data model layer and you're just modeling it out there first, then writing the data agent instructions are just stems from that. So Claude can write them for you. And it's really powerful now because you can do all of that within the same GitHub repository, where your SQL is right next to your whole map of your Power BI project semantic model. And you can just have Claude look at all of that at the same time, make copies of your model if needed, and make them tuned for a data agent to be able to read. And then it can also write the measures, write what the instructions need to be for that data agent. And then you can also tell it to give you a build spec for how to link that up to what you're trying to build in Copilot Studio. Because data agents do really just give you the link to the data. They translate natural language to a query, and then they run the query and respond back in natural language. But generally, that's just a small piece of what you need to do for a full agent framework. So I have some Copilot Studio agents now that have 5+ data agents that they can read from. So it's quite fun to build these. Been tinkering with them a lot. I think the pricing one is going to go a long way, and inventory both. There's actually a couple different Copilot Studio ideas I have to use those for. But all right, those were 3 big things I tackled this week. I think Claude is done logging all of that now. The other metric I flag with this is how many hours it would have taken me without AI, which isn't hard dollar savings, and it has some subjectivity to it. But I still think it's worth capturing. By the end of this year, I'll have a whole 700+ work log items tied to the projects that were part of my goals that I entered into the HR system, and it will make it very easy to talk to my goals and have a whole data set behind it that, again, calculates soft savings based on the amount of time I believe I'm saving. But that can go a long way. It gives you leverage in the conversation. So, okay, I'm going to sign off here. Take it easy, guys. Peace.